But this was an opportunity, I think, for Bernstein to try to consolidate a lot of the existential questions that haunted him throughout his life, to try to address them on many levels. First of all, of course, he wanted to pay tribute to JFK, who was a good friend of his, and he took the one unique quality that was there were so many unique qualities probably about JFK, but the one distinguishing feature that everyone agreed about, let's put it that way, was that he was the only Roman Catholic president. So maybe it's indisputable characteristic. So Bernstein, in his inimitable way, he decides that he's going to highlight that characteristic by taking the Roman Catholic Mass and using that not in a religious sense, but really as a structure. So Mass becomes this framework upon which Bernstein hangs.
Well, the priest has his back to the people and stands between the people and the altar and God. The priest in this construction is the mediator, right? You don't get to God except through the priest. Number one. Two other linguistic points just to give you a hint. The priest is called the celebrant. He celebrates the Eucharist on behalf of the congregation. That's point number one. Point number two, linguistically, is that is called the high altar. The focus on sacrifice, the sacrifice of the Mass, the sacrifice of Jesus. So it's sacrificial predominantly in feel, it's transcendent, it's mediated, it's in a language that you don't speak. Okay? Now I'm going to go get my notes. It was a little like this, where there was from on high. So, what was communicated, and this is a matter of emphasis. I don't want to overdraw this, but it was a strong emphasis. What was emphasized was transcendence, mystery, awe, otherness, otherworldliness.
Daniel Berrigan at the time was at a federal prison. Bernstein went, and he didn't know that there was a 1-hour visitation limit, and before they got to talk about Mass, the time had gone by and he had to leave. So he was very disappointed, but he did find others who could help him. But the fact is that Bernstein, who was, as anybody can tell you, a bleeding heart liberal, his visit to the federal prison was reported to J. Edgar Hoover. Absolutely true. And Hoover immediately passed along the word to President Nixon's Attorney General, John Mitchell, later himself a visitor to that prison for a longer period of time. And his concern was that Nixon not be at the opening performance because it would be politically very embarrassing. And so he didn't. Ironically, the person who commissioned the work was Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis by then. She didn't come either because she felt it was something that her mother-in-law, Rose Kennedy, should be the focus of, not her. If she came herself, she would be the fashion plate everybody would be staring at. And she wanted it to honor Rose's son, her husband. And so it was that is how it came to be. Another paradox is that the social context of the time requires all of us to remember that this was the age of Aquarius, the age of Woodstock, and the painful time of the war in Vietnam. And those who were agonizing over this period in our history, among them people like myself who were then in college, recognized as a kindred spirit Leonard Bernstein. because he was not afraid to open his mouth and speak his piece.